everybody. Welcome to another episode of What a Hell of a Way to Dad. It's your dads again, Nate and Francis, back on the ones and twos. Nate, it is cold as balls here. I don't know how your new country does cold, but we have dropped below 30 degrees, which means I am in hibernation now.
Yeah, it's a lot colder here than the United Kingdom, I'll be honest with you. But I think that because of that fact, they are in denial of the secretive futuristic technology known as insulating your home. And as a result, it's actually very comfortable indoors in our place here.
The wind doesn't just blow through the bricks and rattle the windows like a Charles Dickensian novel.
You know, it's funny as a side note, I read somewhere that someone pointed out that Victorian homes in the United Kingdom were actually designed to be drafty to give the carbon monoxide fumes from coal smoke as many exit opportunities as possible, and I'm not making that up. I will say it was funny because, I was in Belfast for the Lions live show in October, and Cynthia texted me and she was like, how is it? And I'm like, well, it's weird because like my hotel room is somehow hot and also cold. It's like I'm really hot wearing my coat when I come in the place, but then I take even when I haven't taken a shower yet, there's condensation on the windows to the point where like you can't see anything outside of them, even though they're like decorative double paned, vanity double paned, I guess, because it's just so drafty there. So here, I would say what's interesting is that it's much colder.
Sure.
It's typically sunnier so far than the UK is at the same time of year. And so you get, even if you have cloudy days, you still get pretty regular breaks of sunlight. And we've also just had like full on, not a cloud in the sky, sunny days. It's like shockingly pretty. We went for a walk on Sunday down to this Christmas market that they have at the sort of pier on the north side of the lake near people who are familiar with Geneva, the area around what's called Paquis, around like near the train station, that's super touristy, and there's lots of like bars and restaurants and hotels. There's a big Christmas market there. Big for Geneva. And we actually walked down from our apartment down there, and it was like looking up Avenue de Leon, up towards the other part of the border, the northwest, clear sky and just mountains. You could see mountains out in the distance, snow and everything. Looking down towards the lake and the junction and stuff like that, also mountains. You can see Mont Blanc. Like I told Cynthia, it was weird. Like the last time I saw big, stark, cold winter landscapes with really clear skies and snowy mountains was Afghanistan. And I'm not saying it's like a bad association. It's just more like it's really shockingly pretty here. And I guess because like end of summer, beginning of fall, there were some pretty cloudy days and it was really foggy, so you didn't see the mountains as often. So that's the long answer to your question. But like the one thing that has been a surprise is there'll be days where like I'm so used to being comfortable indoors that I just put on my coat or whatever, and I walk out, I'm like, oh my God, it's cold. Like I really need gloves and a hat. It's just that I in London, I always knew if it was cold outside because it was cold inside too.
Right.
And that's not really, I'm not really experiencing the same thing here. So, but I would say it's like probably close to the same. It's like hovering in like the low to mid 30s for a high, and like probably the high 20s for the low. In Celsius, it's like -3 low and 3 high. So I know that 0 is 32 Fahrenheit. So in and around there.
There's a lot of math that has to go into that.
Yeah, you don't even convert. You just learn to kind of like, you don't do the math. You just sort of learn to like what certain things feel like. And, like above 35 really sucks. At a certain point, it gets so cold, like Alaska cold, that Celsius and Fahrenheit are the same. I've actually experienced that before. It's awful. It was -40 Fahrenheit in Anchorage one night in January of 2009. But yeah, it's fine, man. I mean, I've been busy, but also like we can talk about it. It's been weird having our own space now and being almost done. Like the last steps of the move should be happening the next couple of weeks with our stuff arriving. And what I realized is that like maybe you're like this too. I can really power through stuff, but I probably need like a structured off-ramp from a really stressful or busy period, because if not, then like I go through this phase where like I either zone out and do something dumb that's meaningless and waste my own time, or like stuff feels hard. Like any task feels hard. Like a single errand feels hard. Like
if you don't have a like kind of a reward at the end, right? Like kind of a here once we're done with all of this stuff, here's the, is that what you're talking about? that with an off-ramp?
No, what I mean is like, I think that coming off of a period like where I was working every day dealing with stuff with moving and also taking care of my daughter at times and helping out with things around the house and also still working, you know, like there was a weekend when we got the keys to the place the Thursday morning, and I think I got like 16,000 steps Thursday and Friday running errands, and like also there was some kind of transit problem that morning, so I walked to the building. And then that weekend I made like 14 trips on the bus, round trips total between Saturday and Sunday, just taking the bus back and forth hauling stuff. And then that Monday I had to, you know, pack up and coordinate having the guy with the van come carry like the bags and stuff, clean the old place, really clean it, get everything taken care of. And then when I got to the house that night, I think I told you about this on the episode, I had to build an IKEA bed and I got it done, but I didn't get to bed till about 1 a.m. And if I remember correctly, there was something that morning too with getting up relatively early. So yeah, those kinds of things, you know, you kind of like power through those and you have your non-negotiables. And then when you're done and suddenly it's like, what do I have to do? Well, like just a couple of tasks for like a normal work day and maybe take the trash out. And suddenly taking the trash out becomes hard, you know, when like working up the energy to do it because you don't have that kind of, not necessarily structure, but what I would call the kind of like inertia or the sort of nagging reminder, internal nagging reminder, not another person being like, you got to get this done. You got to get, you know what I mean? Like once you got all the time in the world, you can waste all the time in the world, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I feel you on that. Yeah, I get that. My wife often has to stop me when I'm in the zone, as it were. Like if I'm working on stuff and I've got stuff in the basement I'm working on, if I'm doing stuff for the store, doing design stuff, building something, fixing something, repairing something, I get into that like zone. Man, yeah. Right. And like, cause there's always something that's got to be done around the house, right? Like we need to repaint our bathroom. We need to fix something in the bedroom, need to hang these, you know, this art or something. And so what happens with me is I will start doing that and I will forget to eat the entire time. And I am not like, I don't have ADD or ADHD as far as I know. My brain is full of holes because I'm 40 years old. But, you know, I don't get that because my daughter struggles with eating sometimes. You know, she takes her medication. I know you mentioned it too. You take this medication and it makes it so that you forget to do things like eat, take care of yourself, stuff like that. And, you know, hey, it's a struggle for all of us at any given time. And I don't have that except for when I'm working really, really hard on something and then I cannot break myself from it. And then my wife will have to pull me aside and be like, you got to stop. You got to eat something. You got to sit down because you're going to run into a wall. And the thing is that when I run into that wall, I become an asshole. Like I know that when I
know nothing about this, dude. It's not like you're reading my mind or speaking my life history.
I don't eat breakfast. I will, you know, go up until lunch not eating, and that's fine because I walk the dog in the morning and I have an emailing job, right? So it's not a very physically demanding job, and I won't eat till lunch. But if I don't eat until 2:00, I'm fucked. And not only is it I have to stop and eat because I'm turning into a huge asshole, but like you can't just eat and be like, okay, we're good, because it takes like 30 minutes for your brain to register that you've eaten and that you have nutrients. So what ends up happening is I just overeat and then I feel sick because I ate a bunch of garbage really fast because I was really hungry, and now I can't get anything else done. So I just feel like a huge piece of shit the rest of the day. So yeah, eat food. It's good for you, especially when you get into that mindset. You know, what we try to do is I just try to have like little snacky things around. Like I don't like eating a bunch of packaged food, but sometimes it's just what you got to do. I had an Uncrustable for lunch today because I walked the dog, and then I had between walking the dog and jumping on with you, I had like 15 minutes, and it's like that's enough time for a frozen peanut butter sandwich to defrost enough for me to eat so that I have the energy to continue on, and then I'll have something to eat later on maybe. But otherwise, I don't think I'd be an asshole to you, but I would start getting a little testy, and my brain would not function correctly. So I get it.
No, I mean, I know the feeling. I would say it's weird because being on medication can mean that it's very easy to sort of disengage from a distracting thing, but then also sometimes it can mean like you're so focused on work that you don't take a break, and then it's like 3 p.m. and I haven't eaten lunch. And for me, it's the same thing. Like I can, when I'm taking the full strength medication, I can probably avoid. I mean, I try to make myself eat breakfast, both because of like I think weirdly the experience of both being a high school swimmer and all of the morning practices and then being in the army. Like, I just hate working out on an empty stomach. Like, don't get me wrong, if you make me run a race at my grand old age, I'll probably throw up if I ate beforehand, but I'd rather do that than try to work out on an empty stomach. But I'm not going to pretend I eat the world's healthiest breakfast. I mean, like, I try to eat yogurt, you know, like maybe with a little bit of honey or something, but a lot of days I get up and they got a lot of really good bread here, and I just take a little bit of bread with some butter and some Nutella or some other brand version of that kind of hazelnut chocolate spread and just have that, because I gotta have something, because otherwise if you take the meds on, maybe your daughter experiences this, you take the meds on an empty stomach and you get kind of weird.
She's actually taking something that she takes the night before now, rather than the morning of. Yeah, it's a new one called Journey. It has been great because she takes it at night, and then it is like, I guess it's time release, so you can go to sleep on it, and that way she has it at night with food, and in the morning we don't have to really worry about it. But I don't know, with a child that is on the spectrum and has ADHD, we're always learning new things, because, you know, my brain doesn't function like that, right? So I have to learn how her brain functions and how to work around that functionality. So when she was on the Vyvanse, there were some issues, but also I think some of that was just us still learning, because she's growing, her brain is changing, so we have to change kind of the way that we do things and everything. But I'll say the Journey has been great. The Journey, and then also she does dance practice every day, and we used to do it in the afternoon, and it was always a struggle to get her to dance in the afternoon. But now she does it in the morning. She wakes up, she has breakfast, she does dance practice and has a shower. And she, you know, my wife and I, we're both night shower people. Apparently our daughter's a morning shower person, because that's exactly what has helped out with her dance practice. She doesn't argue about it or fight about it or anything. She's all about getting up, doing it, having a good day of starting with exercise, which is how I like to do it. If I exercise, I want it to be first thing in the morning. I'm not a later in the day lifter or runner or anything. I want to knock it out and then have a good breakfast and then move on with the day.
I got to be real with you tonight. I might actually wind up, once I get done with this and, you know, we're going to do, you know, dinner and bedtime and everything, I have to take some trash and recycling out, and I might try to take a walk, because other than running an errand this morning, I haven't left the house. And I talk about distractions and getting focused on fixing things. I have one where you're going to be like, damn, dude, are you trying to just steal my job? Your day job, that is. So, Francis, I don't want to be a sysadmin.
No,
I really don't want to be a sysadmin, but I don't know if I've told you, I, like a tragic figure in a Greek story, a Greek instructional tale about hubris, signed up for the fucking 25 gigabit home internet, you know, fiber connection. And it is in fact very fast. It's very fast. Well, it was, because I downgraded it to a 10 gig. And I'll tell you why. You can probably guess, because you're a sysadmin.
I am not a sysadmin whatsoever.
I thought you did.
Once upon a time, I administered some systems. Now I'm mostly managerial.
So the heads out there, the real ones, people who deal with this stuff will know that the one sort of fine print catch to you can have a 25 gigabit synchronous fiber to the home connection for the mere price of like the equivalent of like $65 is there are no home/small enterprise consumer appliances that can handle the throughput of that kind of a connection. Everything is going to be a server grade or data center grade rack mounted piece of equipment, unless you build your own router, which I now know a little bit about, but I was not prepared to do beforehand. So I got the thing that was recommended. The problem is it has like a grand total between the power supplies and the cooling units, and also between the router and the switch, like 14 fucking fans that all run at 50 decibels each. And I know sound engineering, so I know 50 decibels is like a moderate conversation, but imagine that as permanent white noise plus ramp up, ramp down in an incredibly quiet apartment. It was so omnipresent, this noise, that I got some equipment to try to, I got it in an enclosure, and I was going to try to soundproof it. I got some mass loaded vinyl and some tools to cut it. And then I was like, you know what? At the end of the day, I'm going to wind up having to replace the fans, and that's going to void the warranty. And it's still going to be annoying, and it's going to be like this chaotic quest. Like
time to go water cooled, man. Just fucking balls to the wall. Just put it all in one big fish tank. That's how it works.
Well, here's the thing too, right? The other thing that the real ones know, the real heads know, is that a 10 gigabit connection, 25 gigabit connection, a 40 gigabit, 100 gigabit, all these things, or even down to a 1 gigabit connection, which is pretty standard, like kind of the cheap standard fiber to the home here. None of this really changes your experience on the internet. And the reason is no host on AWS or fucking Google, what is it, the Google Cloud, all these kinds of things, Dropbox, OneDrive, you name it, none of these providers is going to give you a file transfer rate that fast anywhere close to it. In fact, it's going to be, because I've been on fiber connections in Britain on a leased line at our office. It was a 200 megabit synchronous lease line at the TF office, and then 900, 100 at home. And now this, it's basically the same speed. I mean, like slightly, obviously like more stable when it's a wired connection, not Wi-Fi, but like it's not really going to be any faster. We don't have any Wi-Fi 6E devices that can take advantage of it. And not planning on buying any Wi-Fi 7 devices, even though the AP that I've got can do that. I don't have any devices with a 10 gigabit Ethernet adapter with me. I have my Mac Studio, but like it was in the process of getting shipped down. And you may have heard this, if you buy one of those USB, like USB-C, Thunderbolt 3 or Thunderbolt 4, 10 gigabit Ethernet connectors, like network adapters, they're huge and they get hotter than fuck. Like they have gigantic heat sinks. And so I realized I'm like, I can either buy an off-the-shelf appliance that's like a desktop one that's fanless for 10 gig, or I can keep fighting this stupid fight and go completely insane and not get a bunch of other things that need to get done around the house done. So I downgraded. I got this thing. It works. They were actually super cool. The company were like, yeah, you just have to pay the fee to swap out the connector at the fiber point of presence for like a 10 gig line, but like we're not going to like charge you. It's basically the same contract. Their rate is the same per month for a 10 or a 25 gig connection. So that's really cool. Last night I was just trying to do one quick configuration thing to see, because there's some settings you can change on OpenSense, and I didn't brick the router, but I to use the coin of French expression je me suis fucké, I basically turned it into Calvin ball by mistake by changing some settings, and then that caused it to be really unstable, and I had to factory reset it, and I was so tired trying to fix it before bed that I set up the bridge, the LAN bridge, and I forgot to actually activate the ports before I swapped the default LAN setting, or the default LAN port. So none of the ports are active, so I was locked out of the fucking machine, so we didn't have internet. So I had to get up this morning as soon as they opened. I got like 4 hours of sleep, so I just didn't want to have to face Cynthia and be like, sorry, I fucked the internet again. Went down and had to, because I had like the serial cable that came with the router, but I didn't have a USB-A to USB-C adapter, because I got plenty of them in my stuff that's in boxes getting shipped down. So I got it fixed, and it's just one of those things where it's like, now I know a lot about running Linux commands and using iPerf and, fucking backend speed test stuff and setting kernels and all these like tuning things. And you know what? Like, I didn't want to know about Linux. I didn't want to know how to use Mac terminal to Z shell into things. And
this is why my 100 megabit connection with my shitty Wi-Fi router that has like 2 broken antennas that are just kind of propped up in the back. Like, for a tech person, my tech is so busted around my house, but it works, which is kind of what matters. I didn't have to do all of this stuff to get my internet working in the morning.
Well, I mean, the thing about it is that like I'm just kind of being a dumbass. I wanted to make sure, I just wanted to see like whether or not the connection was configured correctly, and the problem was that there are some settings you have to change basically to take advantage of like the full bandwidth of those what is it, the SFP plus ports on this router. And I did them, but I didn't do all of them at the same time before I more or less committed the changes. And so it kind of went bananas on me. But like, as I said, once it's running, it's kind of a godsend. Like there are no fans. It's quiet. It's small. It's like maybe 7 inches by 7 inches by like 2 inches high, as opposed to the enclosure for like, I got a closed, like a thing that could be vertically mounted. And I feel like a dumbass was buying the thing for the 25 gig setup, but like I'm eventually going to get my own office, my own studio here, even if it takes a while to register a business and deal with like the bureaucracy. And once I do that, I'm notionally find a place where I can have like a room where I can put the equipment rack and the noise isn't going to be a problem. And then it's fine. Like, so I don't feel like it's wasted because it's stuff I'll use down the line. But man, I feel like such a fucking idiot with this, because like there's a part of me that really, really digs the extremely DIY aspect of like, you configure it correct, you configure it to what you want. And it's not like, to coin a phrase, it's not like grandma proof the way a lot of like the consumer tech stuff is, where it's tons of annoying settings and like actually dialing into changing stuff is difficult, or it's locked out and so on. And in most of these things, like at least once you've got it up and running, you have a GUI. Like it's not just command line stuff, in Linux or whatever. But the thing is that I realize there's just so much stuff about this that I don't know. You can learn by doing, but sometimes you learn by doing and committing settings in a way that then basically like doesn't quite brick your equipment, but semi bricks it. If for all intents and purposes, until you get the right cable to hardware connect to it, you bricked it. And I don't know, it's just like my daughter's she's had a cold and she's teething, so she's had a lot of disturbed sleep in the past couple of 10 days or so. Most nights she's been waking up crying, and we've been waking up taking care of her stuff. Last night she slept like 9 hours straight. I could have gotten such good sleep last night. No, not fucking great. Great for her. Great for Cynthia. For her. Guess what? I was up till 3 in the fucking morning trying to break this unbreak the router because I'm an idiot. And so I was like, you know what? I could go insane, or I could just be honest with myself. I'm embarrassed because I should have known better, and I need to set some rules for myself. And one of those rules is going to be, I have a backpack that I take to this co-working space, and that's what I put my laptop in. The laptop needs to go in the fucking backpack by 10 p.m. every night, because otherwise I'm tempted to start doing shit. Yep. To like back end stuff, getting on the I can run
poking around on things,
command line shit. Yeah, exactly. And it's like, no.
Yeah, I left all of that a long time ago. I haven't worked off of a Linux box in over a decade, and I understand what you have going on is something a little different, because you manage a lot of different podcasts, and there's a lot of information going back and forth. I am just one guy, and I never wanted to be more than just one guy.
Yeah.
And so I have a very, very easy and basic setup, because every time I have tried to upgrade myself, like my old job when they were recycling a bunch of stuff and just old switches and port hubs and things, and I was like, oh, this is great. I'm gonna get this switch, I'm gonna get this hub, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna be able to run Ethernet all over the basement, I can do this, that, and the other thing. And then I was halfway through it, I'm like, this is fucking stupid. What am I doing? Wi-Fi, done. There it is. What do I need to do? I need to work, which I can do. I need to stream Netflix, which I can do. Anything else is just giving myself a headache at this point that I don't need. That I'm going to do something where what you've done, where you step on your own dick somehow. I've done that a few times with okay, get the new router, log into the router, change these things, put it onto a different subnet. All the basic network security stuff, right? Like, yeah, changing your router and your modem's login information. All basic stuff that if you do it and then you forget, 3 months later, and then you have to get back into the box for some reason, and you didn't write anything down, then you just have to reset everything, which fucking sucks.
And that was the situation that I was in, because there were a few things that I had gotten to work and I couldn't remember them, and I had to kind of figure them out from scratch this morning. And it meant I wasn't able to make it to a Lions recording that I wanted to be at, because I needed it to work with the Wi-Fi access point, because otherwise I'd have to be connected by a cable to the router, and I couldn't record because my daughter is here with the childminder, and she's already very well aware of the fact that I'm here when I'm here, and comes to the door and starts banging on it. She was doing it a little while ago, and you were talking, and I texted Cynthia are you okay? I hear banging, and she's like, no, that's your daughter, being like, you're not allowed to ignore me. She's walking, by the way, dude. She started walking. I swore that none of the lines of the Harry Chapin song "Cats in the Cradle" would ever apply to me. And once again, hubris is punished, because I had to be in London for a TF live show, and she started walking that Sunday of the live show.
Oh, you missed it.
I missed it. But I was in a cab going to this lunch with the cast of the show beforehand, and Cynthia sent me the videos, and I was just sitting there with like jaw dropped, stunned, so happy, and I wanted to be to the cabbie, my daughter just took her first step. You know what I mean? But he probably been like, this guy's insane, also American.
I bet that he also has kids and would have been like, yes, congratulations.
Well, no, but it's the great British challenge of a human connection could be made, but both of us are too awkward to do it. I did live in that country long enough to absorb that. But no, she also has started talking she babbles a ton, but the other night Cynthia asked her oh, are you ready for bed? She just went, no. And it was extremely, extremely amazing to watch. And so it's there's all these things going on where I guess all these things are swirling around, and it's I don't want to be dealing with tech side stuff. I want it to just function. But there's a part of me, and maybe you had this too, that if something has the potential to work in a certain way, I want it to work that way. And it frustrates me when it's sort of running on half speed, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. But it's entirely a figurative thing. It's entirely in my own head, because as I said before, your actual experience of this bandwidth of connection is no different than on a 500 megabit or on a gigabit, except in certain situations, which I'm not experiencing at the moment, because no one's fucking gonna give me that fast of a connection.
Right.
No one is going to provide, no socket or whatever, fucking host is gonna let me connect it, be like, oh yeah, sure, Amazon Web Service is hosting every goddamn website on the planet. Be like, yeah, Nate, you know what? I like you. You can connect at 1.25 gigabytes per second.
You can have the open line. Yeah, I also, once again, I will dodge around whatever, and just to get something functional, and I don't care how I get to that functionality, as long as the functionality is there and stable, and I'm not going to have to deal with it again sometime in the future.
Yeah, and one thing I will say about this, as annoying as it is now that I've got this thing set up and, I did the thing you're supposed to do. I used like a testing app to go around in every room and check the Wi-Fi. I got the Wi-Fi positioned. I had a good PoE injector from the studio that I bought for my own business and when I'm not using. And so while I was there, I brought it back with me. I got it set up and now it's like, for better or worse, everywhere in the house has a good connection. And that to me, like, I think being able to set up your own, like starting with things that don't, they can't work, they're not all in one, but have that sort of configurability and reliability. I think the reason why that's so important, beyond me being annoying, which I admit,
sure,
is that in London, we got a very not cheap Google mesh Wi-Fi system. And because of the size and weird length of the very narrow but very long house we lived in, we had to have a couple of not really repeaters, but they're basically, you have multiple access points and it's configured through this app and so on. And the idea being that you don't have to change your SSID, it's just whichever one has the strongest signals the one it connects to. Well, it actually worked pretty well for a while. And when I switched, we were finally able to cancel Virgin Fiber, Virgin Broadband or whatever, and get on this other provider when they started offering fiber to the home in our neighborhood. For the heads out there, they let you connect by PPPoE. And so I got that set up on the main base station for the Google Mesh Wi-Fi, whatever version it was. And it worked great. Honestly, it worked great. Wi-Fi was fast as hell. The wired connection was basically max throughput of the connection. I was very happy. I had a little 4-port switch I set up in there to run to the TV, because the Wi-Fi adapter on the TV was kind of bad, and to my computer, to my network attached storage. I was like, hell yeah, this is great. I had one extra port if I wanted to just connect to a little wired in connection on my laptop. It was great. Google, apparently there was some problem with it and they pushed an update and it fixed the problem for some people and broke it for everyone else. And their solution was buy the next generation of Google Mesh Wi-Fi. I will never buy another fucking Google product in my life if I can avoid it. I swear to God, dude. Because they're not cheap, man. The base station was like 400 pounds and each fucking module was at least 100 pounds if it was on sale and like 200 if it wasn't. And we needed 4. I think we needed 3 access points, 3 additional access points in one base station. So it was like easily 1,000 pounds we had spent as a family on this stuff just so we could have Wi-Fi throughout our house. And, we needed it for work from home and stuff. And then they're like, oh no, guess what? Fuck you. It's broken. Get a newer one. You broke loser. So I was so mad, and it got to the point where it was so unreliable that the only way you could really get it to work was on a Wi-Fi connection. You had to go into the Google Home app and select prioritize this device. And on a wired connection, you had to run speed tests to kind of prime the pump to get it to not be basically so anemic that downloads would just stall and then cancel. And now bear in mind, like I said before, I had a 900/100 connection, so 900 megabits down, 100 up, fiber to the home, right? Before this nightmare thing happened, it was when on my wired connection was basically running at max throughput. I was getting those speeds all the time. And there's nothing you could do about it. And so I bring this up just to say that to me, having a thing where you can control the parameters and it's not all in one, that was really important because it was so frustrating for Cynthia working from home at the time, a completely remote job. And every day it was is the Wi-Fi going to just completely shit out? And part of me at one point was oh, well, worst case scenario, I will straight up drill through the floor and we'll run a Cat 6A line from, downstairs from the hub up to your work from home station. But then they basically broke the wired connection too. You know what I mean? Everything was messed up. And so to me, it was having that was important. And that has actually worked. That I feel I've accomplished that works now here. But I don't know, dude. I don't know if it's the mismatch with meds, if I need to be on something different. I don't know if it's the aggregate stress or the I'm a new parent, relatively speaking, and just long tail effect of no sleep. But I really, really have had these moments recently where I just I need to solve this problem. And it's yeah, it's a problem, but it doesn't actually matter. That's been happening a bit. I'm not going to lie.
My wife has been talking about that, how just kind of feeling sluggish, not necessarily depression, but just we've been so busy and we still are so busy. And, like any good American family, we are constantly trying to stay, ahead of our bills and, making money, doing all these things, but also want to budget in time to go on vacation, spend time with each other, spend time with the kids, stuff like that. And it does get, there are times I'm just man, I'm just going to read a book or I'm just going to play Stardew Valley for the next 2 hours. Don't talk to me. Like my brain needs this. And all these things that you're asking me for don't actually need to be done right now. They can be done tomorrow. Like I mentioned painting the bathroom. My wife and kid are going to go out of town next week. And I was like, and we've just been putting it off. And I was like, look, go on vacation and I will do the bathroom painting. It's fine. I would rather do it while you guys are not in the house and I don't have to, like I don't have to play husband and father. Like I have a real hard time shutting off, like being a husband and a dad, during those times that you're supposed to, right? Like, so I'm at work now, right? I'm on my lunch break, but I'm at work. And when I get off work between like 5 o'clock and 8 o'clock, that's family time. And I hate to spend any of that time doing anything else, working on any other projects, because that means I'm just like, hey, you know how I've been gone all day? Well, I'm going to be gone for the next hour and a half downstairs working on something. So it does get to, you do got to find those points of where can I stop doing work here and stop worrying about all these things and find a place to do them. Like I said, I told my wife, here's when the bathroom will get painted. You guys leave for 2 days. I will do this. Makes it a lot easier for everybody. Nobody has to worry about it, but it's not a thing that has to be done right now, which is very nice. It's nice to have that ability to, especially for things like that, a big project like that. It's not a big bathroom, but it's painting. Like I got to paint the ceiling and the walls. It sucks. And you got to do 2 coats of paint, and it's where I shower. You can't paint and then be like, cool, I'm going to fill this place up with steam real quick and see how it goes. So,
and even then also it's like, oh, what a nice relaxing shower, huffing fumes. Sounds great.
Yeah. I don't need to do that. That's what I got weed for.
Yeah. My big projects are basically that I needed to get through building all of the IKEA furniture that we had gotten and some supplementary stuff that we got for the baby's room, and doing the childproofing, or at least doing the things that require power tools, like installing the anchors and bolts and things like that. Almost done with that. I basically, the anchor kit, we didn't get one. It didn't come with the thing like we thought it would. So, but other than that, everything's been done. And really the last task is just got a lot of recyclables that have to be taken down to the recycle point. I'm going to do that, and bought a steam cleaner, which is great. I don't know, not like a carpet steam cleaner, but rather like, I don't know if we have them in America. They do have them in the UK, but the brand is Karcher, or like Karcher if you're German, and it's just like a 3 or 4 bar like steam cleaner that just sprays steam, but you put cloths on it and you can use it to clean tiles and glass and stuff like that. And it's actually really great because you can, as long as you've like cleared the surfaces off, it's just so much faster, and you don't have to use like cleaning spray. I mean, I would if there was like, something really gross on the floor, but like in terms of basic maintenance stuff, you don't have to be spraying bleach cleaner and lime scale remover and glass cleaner and stuff. It genuinely works. And especially here, the water's not as hard. And so that's like one of my tasks too, is like get everything set up, because I try to like, we downsized a lot and we want to like keep things not minimal, but not the same approach of like put a shelf in every available space, put stuff you know what I mean? Because I really have found that I don't like that clutteredness, and also it becomes kind of a nightmare to clean. Like everything becomes complicated to clean, and I think the most likely effect of that, or consequence of that, is you just like cleaning becomes such a monumental task that like it's not really a thing you do aside from the bare minimum, and then you just build up of dust and all this crap. And so like yesterday, before I went to the co-working space, I made it a point that I had vacuumed half the house on the weekend and I finished the other half. And, this will let us like keep the bathrooms and the kitchen clean and stuff and those kinds of things, because like there's going to be DIY projects and because we have the balcony with like they have like these IKEA like fake grass tiles. I actually can use it if I need to like do dad work out there. One of my weirdly relaxing dad tasks is I take all the cardboard out there and then use a box cutter and cut it to size so I can recycle it. And a couple weeks ago, I was moving some stuff in the kitchen and I leaned over, and they have the previous tenants had bought an external freezer, because the one built in the fridge is tiny, and we bought it off them. It's nice. It works great. But I leaned over to grab something and I bumped the side, and basically the corner of it hit me almost in the eye. Oof. Like full on, like it hurt so bad. And like, I just kind of crumpled to the ground, and I was like holding my head against the ground, just like, oh my God, that hurt so bad. And I get up and there was blood on the tile, and I was like, oh shit, I cut myself. So I had to ice it. And thankfully I avoided having I iced it, basically to the specs of what you're supposed to do, and I wound up avoiding having a black eye, which is great, but it hurt like hell. And I made the joke to Cynthia, because like a couple days later I was working and I cut all these boxes up with a box cutter, and they fit perfectly in this like oversized tote bag we got from this bedding store that's in the mall downstairs. And I was like, well, this might be like serious concussion number 5 for me, but I guess this time instead of making me like good at music composition, it just improved my spatial reasoning, because every single piece of cardboard basically fit perfectly flat, but also was the exact size of the bag. And I didn't do that. I didn't set out to do that. I didn't measure. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Every time you bang your head, you lose a core memory, but you gain a skill.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know, it's funny because this happened. It started happening worse for a couple of days after this happened. After I had the really bad bike wreck, the one there where I recorded the next day with you, and everyone was like, "Dude, you sounded like you were put through a slowdown machine." Mm-hmm. I started having problems with when I would text and type things. I'd start making mistakes that I never made before, like grammar mistakes, and not like forgetting English grammar, but typing out homonyms like your Y-O-U-R versus Y-O-U apostrophe R-E and stuff like that. I mean, I'd catch myself and I'd fix them, but like I'd never make those mistakes even the first time before. And that's not much of me being a dickhead. Like I made it a point to like try to be really precise in writing, and that started happening again in the kind of like after, like it's back, it's good now, and I'm still like very careful. And maybe some of this is also just age, because I mean I am 40, but yeah, dude, like it's like a different, it's like Midwest Peter Parker just hits his head against things and gets superpowers apparently.
Well, Nate, are you ready to answer some dad questions? We got some hey dad questions.
Yeah. I'm excited, man. Thanks for letting me commiserate about being so dad oriented about projects that you wind up going insane.
No, I think most dads have that, especially when like, look, we had the drain that our washing machine drains into backed up, and we were like ignoring it for a while because it wasn't that bad, but then it started like dumping all the water onto the floor, and I went and I got like, the $15 snake and shoved it on down there. Yeah, that didn't do shit. Didn't do anything. And I had to call a guy, and the guy came out and snaked it, and then he said, give it 30 days. Call me again if you need us to do this, because, it's included. And like, sure enough, the next day he's like, all right, I'm coming out with the longer one. And he got, had no problem since then, but he had to get like, 50 feet into the pipe to grab whatever was blocking it there.
I love how it's like you go to the hardware store and buy a snake and it doesn't really work. And then an actual plumber comes down with like the Morning Star whip that Simon Belmont carries in Castlevania Symphony of the Night. And that's what you actually need to clean pipes with. You have to flail it.
I got the snake that you put down like your bathtub drain, not the snake that you put down like this is going to go down in the hole that connects to the city sewer lines. So you need the real snake, not the like, I got a little hair in the bathtub, I got to drain it out and snake it out and pull it and it's fine. No, it fucking sucked. But you know what? That is actually one of the questions that we have here. When do you know when to call somebody to do something rather than doing it yourself? And I gotta say, for me personally, because I've done a lot of housework, I've done a lot of fix-up kind of stuff. When I look at something, I look at a project and I think, if I break this more, how much am I going to be fucked? Like if it's an outlet, if I fuck up an outlet, it's fine. I can go to the hardware store, I can fix an outlet. But if I fuck up plumbing, or if I fuck up any deeper kind of thing inside of the wall, structural things, I don't touch anything like that. And that's when I know when I've got to call somebody, is just looking at it and being like, if I screw this up, is it going to cost even more money to call the guy than it currently costs to call the guy? Because right now it's a $200 problem. Am I going to turn this into a $600 problem is the question.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I would say for me, having a baby in the house kind of changes the calculus too, because like if it's in an area where like it's going to become a constant ordeal to keep her away from something while it's kind of in progress, I think I'd much rather hire someone. I also think that with plumbing, I know I can do it because I've swapped things out before, but I think you and I have talked about this before, that like we had guests coming to stay with us right before our daughter was born, and one of the taps in the bathroom downstairs broke, and I just had a guy come and swap it out, because even though I could have done it myself, I didn't want to spend the better part of a weekend with a pain in the ass thing that was, I was learning as I was going, when I could just pay a guy to come and do it and it would be done in an hour. Mm-hmm. I think it really depends on whether or not if you enjoy doing it, and also like whether or not it's a thing where in aggregate, like it won't really take you that long to figure out, and then it'll save you a lot of money. It really depends. Like my parents they relayed floor in our house when I was in middle school, and all four of us got involved, me, my brother, my mom, my dad. And it actually comes to find that once you kind of get the hang of laying hardwood floors, like the angle cuts around things like door frames and corners is a little complicated, but I mean, it's not that hard. You just measure and cut. But the actual like putting in the boards and using the what is it? I can't remember if it's like a pneumatic hammer or whatever to like hammer in that kind of thing. It's actually pretty fast. And like you just, there's tools you use to do it. And it's like, when you think about how much it would cost to have someone do it, like it actually can be quite, and it's actually, there's definitely a sense of accomplishment doing it. Similarly with painting, if you like that and you can. I've obviously gotten a lot of experience putting up shelves, and I've just gotten like a lot better at it. I'd also say too, so like that kind of thing I enjoy. But I'd also say too, another big one is, because I made this decision when I was building the table that went in the studio at the Trash Future studio, do a calculus on how much it's going to cost you to get the tools to do the job correctly, because and be honest with yourself, that might wind up being more than hiring someone.
Yeah.
So and then your time also, you're not getting compensated for. So like, I'll give you a great example of this. We built the table and I designed it specifically out of planed all round pine lumber, because all you had to do was basically make the sort of length cuts. Everything else was already done. You know, the thickness, the width, all that was done. But the tabletop, because it was going to be so long, I just had a wood shop make it for us, because my dad wasn't the greatest teacher about woodworking stuff, but he did make me help him with a lot of projects. And when you're mating wood boards together, you need to have a bar clamp every 12 inches. And if you're going to make a table that's almost 300 centimeters long, so almost 3 meters long, do the math, you know, that's 9 feet at least. You're going to need at least 9 bar clamps, and bar clamps that can go, you know, up like 36 to 48 inches are not cheap. And so, I mean, you can get cheapies off Amazon, but most of them are not that big, and actual good ones it would have been more than the cost of the manufacture and delivery just to buy the clamps, the glue, and then there was something else also. Like it would have been really annoying to cut it to size. We would have had to cut each individual board and then like probably sand it down, file and sand it down. We didn't have the space for it. We didn't have the time for it. It was already enough work building the table. That was a very easy calculation to make. And so that's the thing I try to do is it going to be so annoying or dangerous if it takes longer? Is it going to be a huge hassle if it takes longer? And is getting the equipment needed to do it correctly going to cost me more than hiring someone?
Yeah, and I'll tell you, when I had the pod shack finished off, like the company Tough Shed built the shed itself, but I had to do all the internals, the electrical, and the finishing off on the inside. I had a guy help me with the electrical, a neighborhood guy who, you know, kind of knows what he's doing. And I hired a guy to help finish off the inside, because I'd never put up drywall in my life. So I was like, I don't know how to do this. I need some help doing this. And the way that I'd tell him is like, look, I need you to come out here and do this, but I'm going to help you. So you don't have to pay me. I will pay you money. You don't have to hire a guy. I'm here to be an extra pair of hands because I want to see how to do this. And that's how I learned hanging drywall, so that when I had to hang it in my kitchen, I was able to do it. But when we redid the kitchen, we hired the same guy, and I took like 3 days off of work, and I said, I'm one of your hands here. I can do whatever help you need done, because I want to watch you do this stuff. And there are some things like plumbing that is like draining away is fine. That's easy. But like plumbing that's under pressure, I don't, want to touch any of that stuff, right? Like we had to cut new holes for copper pipes to go up, and for the dishwasher, and the sink got moved a little bit. So, we had to do a lot of things that I still cannot do, because he brought out a blowtorch to solder stuff together. But for the most part, I got to learn, so that next time I need to do some of these things, at least I was able to be there with somebody who is insured and credited, so that if something gets fucked up, it's at least covered and it's not me fucking it up. But at the same time, I get to watch and learn and figure out how to do something myself. And I think that, as long as you're hiring a guy that doesn't mind that, like the guy that we hired is a guy who does the handyman work kind of on the side. So he was able to come out for a couple of days to help me out with the kitchen and all that. And I did all the rest of the inside of the kitchen myself. But find somebody, if you're unsure, hire somebody and see if you can like look over their shoulder and help out without being a huge annoying asshole, then that will probably help you out too.
I remember when they rebuilt the interior wall first of all, when they built the soundproof enclosure in the studio, but then also when they rebuilt the interior wall at our place after they tore it down for fixing the plumbing, fixing the sewer main. And if I remember correctly with drywall, yeah, it was interesting to see because I didn't know how it was done either. And I watched them do it, and it was like they basically built the frame wall out of 2x4s, and then had people come and connect the electrics and the plumbing. And then it was like they had the sheets, and they basically used full-size sheets wherever they could, and then cut them to size where they couldn't. And then they just they bolted them in, like they bolted them into the 2x4s with like self-tapping screws or the what they call, what is it? My brain is so tired.
Self-drilling screws.
Self-drilling screws, basically, that are I can't remember the term off the top of my head, but basically when a screw is it's fraise in French. Now I learned that word, like strawberry. But basically when it's it screws in flush, and they would do that countersunk. That's the word in English.
Yeah.
And then have somebody come. The Brits would say like coming in and plaster skimming over it to make it into the smooth surface, and then you paint afterwards.
Yeah.
It was fascinating to watch because it's not that complicated, but like it's definitely a very advanced skill to do it correctly.
It's a skill, definitely, because the inside of here, at some point in time, I would like to pull a lot of the drywall and redo it, just because I can see all the seams and everything. Like, if ever we got around to selling this house and the pod shack is still here, I would probably redo the entire interior of it. Because, yeah, I was like, okay, I can see where you fucked this up. And when I did the drywall in my kitchen, luckily it was a back wall that has a lot of stuff on it, so you can't notice all of the little inconsistencies, but it does, the kitchen looks a lot better than it does out here. So I'm glad that I learned it. I'm glad that I know how to do something like this. Building, like doing house building, is one of those, like, it's one of those things that anybody can learn how to do like 60% of it, but it's that last 40% that makes it like really a well done build. Like, I could teach any jackass to hang drywall. That's easy. But all the stuff afterwards and all the cutting, installing windowsills and installing windows and stuff like that, all things that I learned how to do on YouTube. I could teach, somebody to do drywall in a couple of hours, but all of the extra parts of it, that's what takes the extra. That's what you need the guy for. You got to hire the guy to come out and make it look good, because you probably did a shit job hanging drywall. But it is fairly simple. I would suggest learning how to hang drywall. It's always a job you can have.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta be real with you. There's a part of me that's always like, I'm very happy to be doing a thing like building IKEA furniture, installing the anchors and brackets into the wall to make sure that it's retained correctly and doesn't tip over if a baby climbs on it, because I've just spent a bunch of hours either producing podcasts or doing admin for podcasts or learning about how to set up a DHCP server, for IPv4 versus IPv6, and making sure.
I was gonna say, it's nice to have that job, that thing that you do that has a real effect. Like, I'm putting this screw in to anchor this thing so my baby doesn't die, versus I produce a podcast. Like, I'm not saying that podcast and all these things aren't somewhat important, but like what you're doing at home to protect your child, that's some real. That's the stuff that makes you feel good.
Makes you feel good. I would also say too that I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that when you were talking about you don't mess with plumbing under pressure, that all I could think of was David Bowie and Freddie Mercury in the Queen song Under Pressure, and just thinking, these are your fucked pipes, these are your pipes under pressure. Oh, sorry, had to do that. I played the Queen's greatest hits while building furniture the other day, and I was like, Queen, great band for the singles, terrible band for the albums, and you can take that one to God. I'm saying it. Awful deep cuts. Wow. Do we have time for another Ask a Dad?
Yeah, one more. What's your favorite part of your morning?
What's yours?
Yeah, so for me, I wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, Monday through Friday, because that's 2 hours before I have to be to work, and it gives me a chance to walk the dog, feed the cats. If I have podcast work or anything, I can do it during that time. But like, it's just quiet. Like, there's no demands on my time. If my alarm goes off at 6 and I decide I want to lay in bed till 6:30, I can. And I just kind of lay there in the dark, in the warm, thinking thoughts, and just, not being needed in that moment, those quiet times when everybody else is asleep and I can kind of just do my own thing. It's very nice for me. It's very relaxing. No matter what I'm doing, like I said, even if it is like, oh, I got a whole bunch of work that I need to do for the store or the show or recording something, or it is still nice to have that hour in the morning that is just mine and nobody else is awake asking for my time, other than the big dog. But after she pees and eats, she's fine. She doesn't need me.
My favorite part of my morning is I get up at 7. I set an alarm for 7. Sometimes earlier if my daughter wakes up crying, then obviously I'm going to wake up and help out, take care of her. Cynthia tends to get up a little earlier to go to the gym. I get up, and if my daughter's still asleep, then it's even better because I could just have that quiet and make some coffee and get some hopefully cold water from the fridge and just sit and make my extremely European breakfast of bread, butter, and Nutella. Just eat that really quickly. But just, I would say, yeah, those nice morning when you have the quiet, big coffee head. But I agreed that Cynthia had the right idea that in Switzerland you can buy at any price point coffee maker machines like espresso and coffee makers that are all in one, that have the water tank and the whole bean hopper and a grinder. And we wound up going with a Melito one because it was like, it's really, really well reviewed and cheap. Whereas if you buy for like a brand like Ura, it's like 5 times as much, and it's like, oh, it's Wi-Fi connected. Great. That means I can break it in the middle of the night. Cool.
Right.
But so I have that, and it is a little loud, but because this house is extremely well built and very quiet, when you close the door to the kitchen, which is nice to have a door that closes to the kitchen when you're cooking and there's a little baby running around, you really cannot hear it, even in the living room right next door, much less further out in the bedrooms. And so, yeah, I go in and I start that thing up and make a coffee, and then, just sit and kind of enjoy the quiet.
You know what we got recently from Savers? We got a Cuisinart hot water kettle, an electric kettle. We've always been boiling the water on the stove, and this thing, it retails for like $70. We got it for $7, I think. Like with a So go to Savers, man. Got all kinds of good stuff there, and it is great to just hit a button.
I had a Breville one in America, which is weird because Breville normally makes pretty good brand stuff, but like I think I went through 3 of them because they kept breaking.
Oh, wow.
Like they looked gorgeous, but they broke, and I don't know. I bought I just went downstairs to there's a chain of electric like a electric appliance home goods store in Switzerland called, it's FUST, so it's, I guess it's Fust in German. It would be probably Fust in French. I don't know. Fust. It's Fust. That's what I call it. And I just bought like a microwave and a kettle that I could carry because I didn't want to do something huge. And to be honest with you, I probably should have gotten better ones, but they work. They do what they're supposed to. And the kettle,
cold water gets hot.
Yeah, and then once, like I said before, it's 230 volt power. Even Switzerland has lower amperage sockets than Britain does, but with 230 volt, even on 10 amps, you just, water gets hotter faster. Like it just, it doesn't take as long to boil. And because I was like you, like my mom is still like that. She makes tea and she always boils it on the stove. She doesn't use an electric kettle. I
just like when I heat up the stove, that means that I can't, like, because of the way our kitchen is laid out, we have the cooktop that's built into the counter. So like a lot of times that's also counter space for me.
Yep, sure.
So if I use the burner, I can't use that counter space for the next, you 15...
can, but you just melt one of your cutting boards like me, or melt a lot of them. Yeah. I know exactly what you mean, man.
So yeah, it's nice to have it, and we've been, now that it's winter, we're using it heavily because I turn into a tea head in the winter because I'll do coffee in the morning, but we're big on the iced coffee. But I've made my hard change over to big travel mug, like the double-walled travel mug that's just full. I fill it most of the way and just do 1 tea bag because I like to have a kind of weak tea, throw a little creamer into it, and sip on that all morning.
I'm really on some bougie stuff here because I can have dairy in Switzerland. It doesn't mess up my stomach, and like, man, it's genuinely really, really good. And so we've just been buying cream, like the cream you would use in coffee. And I'm taking a page out of my mom's book because she's a strong believer in very, very long brewed tea. She would just, when she made a cup of tea with tea bags, she would just put 2 in the bag, in the cup. And so make tea with 2 tea bags and then but then you cut it, the creamer is still like, you only need like a couple of drops to put cream in that to get it to be like a normal cup of tea. So yeah, I do that too. Also, the childminder, she's actually expecting a baby in about 6 months. So she's had a little bit of morning sickness, and she asked me to grab something from the grocery store that I never had before, which is fennel tea. And it's kind of like licoricey. It's really, really good. Yeah. So I've been having that when I'm like, yeah, you probably don't need something caffeinated. It's 9 o'clock at night. You have this tendency that if you don't really start winding down, then you're like, hey, let me restructure all of the fucking, let me go through and check out all the core processes and all of the buffer sizes on the CPUs and the network adapters in the router that you need for work. That's gonna go great.
We have like an Amazon subscribe and save for like a case of decaffeinated Earl Grey tea, and just every couple of months we just get a whole bunch of that, and that's fine. I'll drink that all. Sometimes I just need a hot beverage. I don't really care.
And this time of year, man. Oh geez, yeah. It's a godsend. We had Subscribe and Save in London. Cynthia used it a bunch for things. They actually don't have Amazon here. Like they managed
How do you get things?
They have their own stores you buy stuff from, and they're like, it's weird.
You have to go to them?
No, you buy them offline. They deliver.
Oh, okay.
It's not. I mean, like you can buy from Amazon France or Amazon Germany, depending on where you are in the country, and it's not super.
Just kind of drop kick it over the border.
No, I mean, I think they've got like a forwarding partner in Switzerland, but it's not like you're not going to get like prime pricing. Like it's going to be like an additional like £6 to get something delivered. But yeah, Brock is one BRACK, sells electronics and household goods. Galaxis / Digitech is basically one for everything else. Like my Swiss friend was telling me, he's like they had to kind of step up the game because delivery wasn't as much of a thing here, and like they've more or less successfully kept Amazon out. So yeah, this really is living in the alternate universe.
I was gonna say we were talking about appliances, and I remembered an Italian appliance company called Smeg.
Yeah, man. Yeah. They have them in Britain. They're all over the place too. And every time I see them, I'm like, that's just weird.
The Wikipedia specifically has this article is about the Italian manufacturer of home appliances for the use of Smeg in the TV series Red Dwarf. See Red Dwarf, because that's where I know Smeg from.
Oh, because I was going in a completely different direction. That it sounds like dick cheese, but
it is. That's what it is.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
That's why in Red Dwarf they call each other Smegheads.
Well, the more or less store brand appliances for the microwave and kettle that I bought at Fust were in cooperation with the store brand of like kitchen goods from you'd think it's Co-op, but it's Coop or Cop in French, Coop in German, Cop in French. So if you buy a sandwich from there, you're either buying a Coop sandwich or a Cop sandwich. I got a salad, I got a Coop salad, I got a Cop salad. Anyway, but their store brand of household goods is Betty Bossy. So I basically have a Betty Bussy microwave. It's BOSSI, Betty BETTY space BOSSI. I don't know why they call it that, but yes, I all I can think of is Betty Bussy. So
before I'm going to send you this Wikipedia. This is an electrical automation datacom power transmission company in St. Louis, and I want you to try to pronounce this name.
French girl man.
French girly man.
French girly man. Oh my goodness.
St. Louis founded, baby.
Yeah. What was the one? The one that really gets me is I bought the server enclosure that I bought when I hadn't given up on the 25 gig connection is from a company called Assman, ASSMANN. And also I don't know if you remember this in the Midwest. Used to love this. Was the trucking company called Asplund, ASPLUNDH. It's just like, I'm sorry, man. It looks like ass plunder. Like you're plundering ass. That's what it looks like. What can you do about it? You know what? I'm 40, but deep down, I'm still 13 in some ways. When I see that name, I'm going to laugh. It's just how it is.
Yep. Every time I see French girly man, I laugh.
French girly man. Jesus Christ.
Nate, thanks for coming on. Thanks for doing dad chats with me. Everybody, thank you for listening. If you like this, remember, we have a Patreon where you can get all kinds of really great stuff. Just released the final Deadliest Warrior of Season 1, which is the IRA versus the Taliban. Tom came on to talk about the IRA, the Taliban, and the confusing nail bombs that the IRA was making during the entire time. At one point, they're making a pipe bomb, and one guy's just got like a plunger, and he's like plunging nails into a pipe bomb. It's great. Deadliest Warrior. It is a TV show where that has forgotten all the science, but that's okay because they blow stuff up all the time, and that's what we're really here for.
Also, let me just leave you with this: if you're listening, shout, please. Can you do a little golf clap round of applause for Francis, who's been doing some heavy ass lifting, fucking carrying stuff while I've been on a chaotic dad quest called being the primary childcare provider for a very long time while moving internationally. But my goal in the last dying weeks of 2024 and then in 2025 is to do this more often, to be back on the show as the co-host that I actually am. But thank you, Francis, for all of your hard work. And I feel like I wanted to say that so the listener can hear too and be like, you're right, Francis does do a lot of work. You know what? we should give him credit for that.
You should also give us $5 a month for it. It's a labor of love. It's a labor of love. It's been doing it for 8 years. It has changed and evolved, and I really like how it's changed and evolved. I like what we're doing now. I'm glad that we're not angry online anymore. I'm glad that we're not only talking about the military. We still talk about the Army sometimes. We're both in the Army for long enough that it's a part of our lexicon, part of our lives. But I hope everybody else really enjoys the dad chats. I know I do. I think we have something good going on here.
I will say also that if you're migrating off of the platform that sucks now, that we used to use for plugging our shows a lot, both Francis and I are on BlueSky now, and I'm just in these deserts.bluesky.social, and I think you're Army Strang, or you?
No, actually, I changed it because with BlueSky you can make your handle your website. So whatahellofawaitodad.com is where you will find me, where I'm still posting my same bullshit. Like, it's not like, oh, here's the official podcast. It's just, I've decided there's no real difference between the podcast brand and myself. So you can find me there, and I'll link our stuff down there in the show notes too.
So basically what you're saying is I should change my display name in BlueSky or my handle to login:password ampersand the IP address of my router.
I think it has to do with DNS settings, and you can't do it based on a router. So you'd have to have an actual domain that you can add the DNS settings.
I could have my public facing IPv4 address. But yeah, you're right. Probably wouldn't work, would it? It might. Well, you never know. If you have colon at the end of it with the port, you could do that. Or you could enter it into, Internet Explorer back in the day and it would become like an FTP server. But if you do it in Google Chrome now, don't do that because it doesn't do an FTP. It just Google searches your fucking information with your password and ports and everything. Not that I know this from experience. This is when being an old head fails you. Anyway, Francis, wonderful speaking to you. To the listener, thank you so much for listening to the show. We really appreciate you, and we'll speak to you soon.